Great.
Chaz and David Lee Scales. Question for you. Just got done surfing, and I pinkled in my wetsuit. Some would call me a wetsuit pinkler, if you will. But my question is, by default, aren't all surfers sit pinklers if we're pinkling while sitting on our board? I don't know. I think there's something there. Unless you're one of those people who denies ever peeing in your wetsuit. And in that case, I don't have time for your elitist ways. So, anyway. Oh, and also, isn't that person who denies peeing in the wetsuit just as bad as the misogynistic man who only stands while he pees? I think there's something there, too. Anyway, that's it. I think I'm supposed to say keep up the good work, even though, to be honest, I'm not really sure why, but, keep up the good work, and hasta la vista. Bye-bye.
Is he a new listener? It's just keep up the work.
Keep up the work. And I love that it's gotten shortened now, even just to work.
I know.
Often we'll just get the work.
It was good when it was keep work.
Yeah.
But just work is good.
Yeah. That's all we're doing is work. But to his point, I was thinking about it as he was talking. I am a sits pinkler on land. I'm a floats pinkler out at sea. Rarely will I pee sitting, straddling the surfboard. For some reason, I don't know if it's uncomfortable or what, but my typical is like to get off the board and dangle in the water and
rest
pinkle.
on the board.
Rest on the board and then take care of the pinkling.
Because if you're sits pinkling on the board, it's a big pool of pee that you're sitting in.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite flush out as
exactly.
quickly.
And I don't mind that as much as there's something like restrictive, like in that it doesn't feel right. Even though I am a sits pinkler, I'm a floats pinkler out at sea, or sometimes I'm a paddle pinkler. But do you pinkle while paddling?
No. And the worst thing ever is when you're sits pinkling and a set comes.
And because automatically, it's not even like a conscious thing of turning it off. It goes off, and then you're like, oh, it hurts.
It's almost physically impossible to shut off a pee midstream.
Yep.
But you have to make that decision, whether you're going to confront that and go against God's nature, or miss the set.
Mine does it automatically. Like mine will shut off right when, and even if I don't want to, even if I'm like, I'm not going to catch this wave. I don't even care about this wave. It's already done. It's too late. Spoken for.
Yeah, it's a real crime. Funny thing is, we never ever talk about peeing in wetsuits. I don't know if we've ever barrel or not it. It's a foregone conclusion.
Of course it's a foregone conclusion.
But everybody who doesn't surf would be a little bit repulsed by the idea. And whenever it comes up in conversation with non-surfers, they're just like, no, not everybody pees in their wetsuit.
Yeah.
100% of people who have ever gone surfing peed in their wetsuit every single time they went surfing.
Except for I feel the COVID Val surge. I think those guys, I don't know if they do. Like it was that's how you surfed. It was like somebody asking when you're going surfing, hey, do you paddle? Do you use your arms to paddle? Like peeing in a wetsuit and surfing were so inextricably entwined you couldn't ever break it apart, of course. So it never even got asked, I think, for us. I think COVID learners, adult learners come in and say, ew, I don't want to sit in my yucky. And so I don't know that they do.
Do you think that anybody's ever gotten out of the water to pee?
I would venture a guess that an adult learner will, I kind of got to go. I'm going to just finish my session early and use the toilet at the top of the stairs.
Could you imagine?
No.
Or what? I think I'm curious if anybody's ever gotten out of the water just to pee and then got back in and continued their session. That would be unfathomable to me.
I'm going to go hang out at the Cardiff State Beach restrooms to see. That's exactly where it probably would happen if it's going to happen.
Doheny.
Yeah.
Maybe Sano, maybe.
Is there I can't remember what the nearest toilet to Malibu is. Is there one?
I have no clue.
Down the way? I think that would be a harder one to get to. But yeah, for sure the Cardiff Reef one is right there.
Yeah, you're right.
Perfectly in view. So they're sitting out in the lineup thinking, oh, I really got to go number one. And then paddle in and go.
Field trip after this show.
Yep.
Let's go. Figure it out.
We can go and sit on, what if Joel Tudor did that? What if you were just waiting for someone? You saw Joel Tudor get out of the water at Cardiff Reef, run into the bathroom, listen by the door. You don't hear any number twos. You just hear a little tinkling, and then back he goes to the lineup.
Pinklin?
Yeah.
That would be Beach Grit's biggest story ever. Revealing that Joel Tudor exits the water to pee.
Would be
amazing. Last week we were talking about the Guinness Book of World Records, Laura Enever, all that kind of stuff.
You thought I was overblowing that, didn't you? Everyone did, but look at now it's blown up right in front of everybody's faces.
I don't think I thought you were overblowing it. Yeah, what do you mean?
I got a lot of people on Beach Grit telling me in the comments that I was making a mountain out of a molehill.
So I did not read those comments, but my thought is we were making a mountain out of a molehill because we misinterpreted the fact that we thought that the Guinness Book of World Record was a legitimate organization.
It's not.
It is not a legitimate organization.
No.
Okay, so is that what the comments were?
No, not at all. That's what I was pointing out or trying to point out this is, and are you saying it's not legitimate because they don't actually judge the World Surf League?
Not at all. What I'm saying is let me read to you some of their other record keepers.
Let's go. I'm excited. I did not even know this at all.
Turns out that big wave surfing is kind of
good.
The most, it's kind of like the most noble and definable among their records. Most watermelons self-chopped on one's stomach.
Okay.
There's video of this. You can go to their Instagram page right now. It's a recent video. A listener sent it to me and they're like, wow, this is who Laura is contending against, essentially, or holding a title alongside.
Yes.
It's a dude laying on his back on a picnic table and a line of people, like an assembly line behind him, handing watermelons as fast as possible. He's holding a sword in one hand. They put the watermelon on his stomach. He chops the watermelon in half on his stomach. They push it off. They put another one on. Guess how many he did in 1 minute?
1 minute. Watermelon chop. I'm going to say 30.
31.
Oh, look at how close I was.
You must have been referring to the previous record holder. Most watermelons self-chopped on one stomach, 31. Spinning a basketball on a toothbrush for the longest. Largest gathering of people dressed as Albert Einstein. Fastest typing with nose. Farthest distance to blow a pea.
A pea, like not a
green pea.
Not a pinkle.
Not a pinkle. That would be totally weird. Most Rubik's Cube solved on a skateboard. So when I look back at Guinness Book, and you know how in childhood when we used to look at books?
I used to go to the library and get the Guinness Book of World Records, always.
Me too.
The fingernails, the...
World's longest fingernails.
Yep.
Fattest twins riding motorcycles.
Exactly.
Longest hair.
The shortest man and the tallest man together.
It was basically a circus sideshow from like Eastern Europe.
It's a straight up freak show.
And yet, when you and I were discussing it last week, we were acting as if they were the Nobel,
legitimate,
delivering the Nobel Prize.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't. I mean, because that's the only way I ever thought about the Guinness Book of World Records was as a freak show.
Me too.
It was that curly fingernail woman is seared into my memory.
If I happened to get to the page where it was like the highest high dive,
I
just skipped past that. I was like, who gives a crap about that? I want to see the long fingernails.
World's fastest man. You're like,
don't even care.
Duh. Don't care.
Yeah,
don't
put that
know.
in the encyclopedia, not in the Guinness Book. The Guinness Book is for freak shows.
It is a freak show. I mean, this is a great point you bring up, David Lee Scale. A great point. And further, did you read Kayla Kenley's screed?
No, I did not.
Oh, did you even? Were you even aware she made a screed?
I'm used to about 4 screeds a year from her.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if this lands in her quota or is this
is a new
anomaly for
No, this is a new screed, but it was a 4-part Instagram hard post.
Okay.
4-part, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, taking a sledgehammer to the World Surf League over basically deception, outright lies, being stingy, all to do with the Big Wave World Tour, directly related to Guinness. So she said, of course. And it was kind of quiet when they did this. I remember the announcement, probably even wrote about the announcement. It was in 2022, so just last year, where they dropped the XXL Big Wave Awards as the thing for big wave surfing, right?
Okay.
Where so every year at the XXL Big Wave Awards, somebody won and that person got paid, right? There was Ride of the Year, there was whatever it is of the year. Now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the XXL Big Wave Awards was taken by Bill Sharp.
Correction, I don't think he took it back. He
started a
separate one under a different name.
Okay, so Bill Sharp, though, is going back to what the ideal should be. Bill Sharp has always been involved in big waves, et cetera, et cetera. But that aside, so the World Surf League dropped the XXL Big Wave Awards and now changed it to the exact title is something like the
new Big Wave Challenge Awards.
The new Big Wave Challenge Record Challenge Awards. So that's it. So you only get you only get an award for a Guinness Book of World Records. So the whole thing is tied directly to Guinness. You get the award for breaking the Guinness record for biggest ride, either paddle or, and so Keala's point, all well presented. One, world records aren't broken every year. They're broken, especially good ones it's hard to break a world record, or should be hard. That's what makes them world records, right? All this Guinness silliness aside. And so the World Surf League now is not having to pay out every year. Maybe it's every 2, maybe 5 years, right? Like a long time ago between a record. So that, the fact that the data that they use is proprietary and they refuse to share it with surfers. So we brought that up, like, how in the world do you tell on a giant water beast a difference in 12 or 18 inches or whatever, right? And so she goes through exactly that and says, this is all silly. What's more, the surfers, I guess, asked for the data. How are you processing this? World Surf League refused to show what the data is, how they're doing this. So it's all just a lie. It's a complete scam. She really lights into them and does, I feel, the fine art, the hard work, the toil of clickbaiting a dirty, because she basically says the World Surf League now is involved in clickbait because, it's the start of the big wave season, how to get any media attention on this. Let's give a award to Laura, right? Of course, with the secret sauce that we have that only we know. Let's give the leggy blonde the biggest paddle award, and then we'll make some news, right? And we'll get some eyeballs on. So yeah, it was a 4-part series. I don't think I listened to the 4th part, but
she's back in my good graces.
Yeah, it was all legitimate. It was all legitimate gripes with the World Surf League and really tearing in, which makes me feel, if you lose Kayla Kenley, who else do you have if you're the World Surf League? It feels like John. Did you read the story? John leaving? Of course.
It's in our show notes.
Great. So we can get to that whenever. But it feels like they're losing the room at this point, right? They're losing people that should be both advocates, and if this rising tide floats all ships that I feel was sold, World Surf League, especially under Eric Logan, he's like, hey man, the bigger pro surfing gets, the better we all do. Or that was Paul Speaker. That was somebody's dumb thing. Dirk Ziff, maybe even. That was Dirk Ziff's when he got mad at the grumpy locals. His whole thing was this rising tide will float all ships. Well, apparently not only is the tide not rising, but the ships are just leaving.
Yeah, exactly. And they're poking holes in the ships as they go down. Yeah. You know what I mean? So they did lose their core audience at some point. They eroded that. The athletes had incentive to still participate, and certainly the big wave athletes, because there was really no other game. Exactly. And sponsorships were tied to that and all that. Professional kind of shortboard riders could have a career outside of the CT just by being a free surfer. Yeah. So there were other options for them, but I think the big wave was really sponsorships, earning money off contests. They were the only game in town. So yeah, if they're losing all of that contingency as well, what do they got? I mean, and they lost sponsors along the way, obviously.
She noted that the World Surf League, the Jaws event, is the, I think, lone now big wave event on tour. I mean, so I don't even know why it's called a tour. I think Jaws is the lone big wave event, period. And they last ran it in 2019 or something like that, where as a WSL event, right? And so not only do they not run stuff, not only did they take away the thing that was at least yearly, the awards, they have tied it to Guinness, don't have to pay out anymore, or pay out, for records being broken. That's it. But it's an absolute clown show of an organization.
Good on Keala.
Yep, Keala took it to him.
The fiery screed, out of the 4 that she does a year, there's, I'd say 2 of them that I'm like, this is a little bit I don't know. Just I don't align with that way of thinking or whatever it is. Yeah. But that one, back in my good graces.
The one thing she did leave out though was riding out of a wave, which I do like. So she put Laura's, one of hers at Jaws and Andrea Muller's at Jaws. She said, look at these 3 waves, right? You tell me the difference here, basically. Right. The only similarity, to all 3, besides the waves looking very similar in height, was that nobody even came close to riding out. Everyone got gobbled by the whitewash. I guess Keala's came closer. It seemed like she rode further than anyone else down the wave. But
I should pull up an Instagram right now. Somebody or a DM that somebody sent me. If I can find it quickly, I'll read it.
Is it the Steve-O one?
Yeah, it was. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, I can remember.
All right, if you can I think I have it right here. Okay, the only award that should be given out the only award that should be given out for an incomplete ride is Wipeout of the Year, full stop. If riding out is a non-requirement, might as well have Steve-O and the Jackass crew out there, and they would set the record no problem. Or maybe it's just some guy going over the Niagara Falls in a barrel can to win the award next year.
It's so true.
That's a great point.
I mean, I don't know how that just gets totally forgotten.
Because we can parse, like, Laura Enever, let's say, quote, made the drop, but didn't, quote, ride out of the wave.
Yeah, but I mean...
So she made the drop of the longest, covered the most number of feet on a wave from beginning to bottom, and then fell after that, would be the argument.
I mean, I'm
not making the argument.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know how it can be surfing if you don't... I mean, in football... for something to be counted a fumble, you have to make a, quote, football move, is what they say, right? And so if you catch the ball and you don't, like, do a little juke or take a step or whatever, and you lose the ball, then it's an incomplete pass, right? Like, to have a pass be a fumble, you have to do a football move. Where it seems in these ones, there's no surfing move. There's a drop in, but you don't see even a bottom turn out and then getting gobbled up. Like, there's nothing. They're just dropping and getting swallowed by the whitewash.
Ending the wave on your own accord.
Yeah.
Could be a qualifier.
Yeah. I mean, even if they...
choosing to jump off.
If they did a bottom turn and went for an appreciable amount of time, which I think and then got eaten by the whitewash, then I'd say, okay, they made a surfing move right there, right? They dropped in, they bottom turned. But even that's a little hard. You got to finish the ride in surfing.
I guess... those examples that Kiala gave aren't worth. Then none of them got close to riding out. But there will be an example ultimately where
somebody gets close, gets
to the shoulder and then overrun by it, or it hits a chop on the shoulder, something that is like negotiable.
Yeah.
To where, or you and I would argue, okay, could have been this way, could have been that way. None of these examples were actually worth even arguing.
No, because they all got swallowed on the drop.
Yeah.
Which... nothing against those.
Well, way gnarlier than anything you and I would do.
Of course.
Almost goes without saying, but I feel like people will still say that.
Yes, of course. And it is nothing against any of the women. It's against 100% the criteria that the World Surf League is using because I feel that if I knew nothing about surfing and I was home and Laura Enevar's wave came on the news, like they do, like the last segment of the night
a feel-good moment.
Yeah, feel-good moment. Yeah, that's the world record and they showed that. I'd think, what? Like, she didn't finish it. She paddled.
Exactly.
She dropped.
Which kind of to one of my points from last week is all of these kind of efforts undermine the greatness of surfing.
Yep.
And so that would do the same thing. You referred to it, but the general theme of the show is big breakups in sponsor land this week.
A lot of them.
We have Billy Kemper takes to Instagram to lament the power shift at Ruka. 6 surfers left Ruka. John takes to the inertia of all places to lament the direction change of the WSL one day before his own brand sponsors the Pipe Pro. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that.
Interesting, by the way. And then the juiciest, I'd say, breakup of them all is Ricky Bassnett versus Sean Thompson.
So juicy.
Should we start there?
Let's start there.
What is the blood feud between Ricky Bassnett and Sean Thompson?
Ricky Bassnett, the beloved mid-2000s surfers, for those who were back in the ASP days watching, South African, had I always remember, or not always remember, but remembered him pre-getting on tour as like fiery a bit, had a good style, or he was something interesting, right?
Yeah.
Got on tour and floundered, but then got off tour, fell into the bottle or was in the bottle the whole time, but clawed out, got sober. And I lost track of him, but apparently he's since... have you followed along with him?
Not at all.
Yeah.
I remember him from the era, never saw him since.
Yeah. So I guess was continuing on, South African surfing stuff. It seemed like he was riding, interesting craft. I think he became a tattoo artist. but then was involved with Instinct. And Instinct, as the listener knows, Sean Thompson's brand started around the time of Gotcha. I think what I heard was that he was jealous of Michael's Gotcha, and so started Instinct. And it was always, in my estimation, they're not the best version, right?
No, not at all. I didn't even know it still existed, by the way, until this story.
He just brought it back. So they just revived it. So anyhow, Ricky Basnet works for Instinct, or worked for Instinct, or surfed for Instinct. I didn't really know exactly.
So it's a South African brand started by a
Sean
world
Thompson.
champion South African. And so they're employing and supporting the local South African surfers.
Yes, but then Ricky Basnet took to Instagram, I guess probably a week ago now, with a slide that said "From the river to the sea." That's all it said, and then the caption was something, I don't know, and a genocide now or something. Sean Thompson,
ceasefire, maybe hashtag ceasefire.
Yeah, something like that. Sean Thompson wrote him a letter excoriating it.
I'm going to read Sean Thompson's letter for the listener. Sean did not publish this publicly. He wrote this privately to Ricky, and then Ricky published it publicly, which you can bring us up to speed on. But the letter said, Ricky, you can support Hamas and the kidnapping, murder, rape, and dismemberment of babies all you want. You are parroting the same old anti-Semitic tropes I have heard my whole life, the same Jew hatred that has been around before you and will be around after. Support Hamas and be proud of your choice. Initially, I thought you were simply ignorant, but now I know that is not the case. I will not be aligned and support an anti-Semite, someone who calls for the destruction of Israel. Certain things in life, like values and human decency, are more important than business. Genocide. Do you even know what that word means? 6 million Jews died in 1940s. That was genocide. Your anti-Semitism is disgusting to me, Sean Thompson.
Boom. Mic drop. I suppose it must be stated that Sean Thompson is, in fact, Jewish. And so there we go. So that's the Blood Feud, or the one on the surface. So apparently Instinct, according to Ricky, he got fired, let go. And then Ricky said, I will not back down. These are my beliefs. I feel
publicly. He said this. Yep. He said, quote, I've been quiet about this subject for fear of losing my employment, and I was proven right. I made a simple post 2 days ago, and within minutes had old mate Sean trying to make me take it down. I will never be censored, all caps. I will always stand by my beliefs. I will continue to try to spread love in this world. Good luck to the brand locally. I hope he doesn't F it up for you all.
Boom. So Sean Thompson then, this came out as a Beach Grit Blood Feud, of course. Sean Thompson wrote a piece for Beach Grit saying Ricky did not, in fact, get fired. He quit. He chose to leave. And then Sean Thompson defended, said, look, I don't like what's going on in Israel, and I, do not advocate for the death of Palestinians, all this, but, this is provocative stuff. And then Ricky came back yesterday on Beach Grit and did a Q&A with Derek and doubled down on his beliefs that it is genocide and on and on and on. So there we have it.
Wow.
Big.
It's very intense. I understand I'll just give you my take on it, I guess.
Yeah.
I understand Sean has skin in the game, obviously. And I understand his intensity for feeling the way that he feels about Ricky. What I'm a little bit shocked by is Ricky's willingness to blow up his life for this belief. And I don't know what his connection is to the war. And maybe he just is such a sympathetic person that, I feel like I'm a sympathetic person and I see the war and I am offended by the loss of human life and the barbarianism that is taking place on both sides. So what I'm offended by as a human being is babies being killed and ripped from their mothers and not having access to healthcare, medical care, water. All of that stuff is offensive to me on both sides, right?
Yeah.
The loss of human life is offensive to me. I am not ignorant enough to think that I understand the complexities of the event in order to take one side and justify their behavior over the other's behavior. And that's kind of where I stop. And I do know that people do have a lot of skin in the game, and therefore I'm going to leave it to them to discuss and to sort out politically and all that, and to just take a stance on publicly, because I'm just too far removed from it. As horrific as it is, and as offended as I am as a human being, I'm too far removed to really take that public of a stance and opposition against somebody who does have skin in the game, right?
And it is horrific. You're exactly right. Like, it is horrific, but also we exist right now in the fog of war, where what do you know and what you think you know, all of this. I think the perfect example is the raid, the Israeli IDF raid of the Palestinian hospital yesterday, right? Now, this is a horrific thing for a military to raid a hospital, a civilian hospital, right? Now, Israel says Hamas was operating out of the hospital, that their tunnels, and they had an armory, and they were legit operating out of that hospital. Hamas says, no, we weren't. Israel's trying to go in and prove. Hamas is going in and proving they weren't, right? And so this proof, this won't settle out for months, if ever, right? Like, if the IDF did invade a hospital, that's really not, that is so beyond the pale. If Hamas was operating out of a hospital, that is also so beyond the pale. We don't know. And exactly to your point, so to really point a hard finger at the other side, I definitely think, yes, this war is sickening, and it's heart sickening to see so many innocent people dying. And any way it can be brought to a conclusion, a fitting conclusion, we should all be hopeful for that. And I'm sure Sean is too, as well. I don't think Sean is bloodthirstily saying death to all Palestinians.
No.
And so it just seems like, but everybody's we talked about it last week, everybody's so wrapped up and so tight that granting zero grace to the other side. And again, we are talking about this comfortably in the backyard of Cardiff by the Sea, right? To be so, and Ricky was talking about it comfortably in South Africa.
At his oceanfront property, apparently.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So it's and I get, go protest for, either protest against anti-Semitism, or go protest against, the death of Palestinians, or go protest for a ceasefire or whatever. But it just feels like it doesn't need to be.
What I was confused by is, why is Ricky blowing up his own life? Presumably, and I do understand, if they are saying you need to be silenced about your opinion, and you take a stance, that's what the stance maybe is for Ricky, more so than feeling that strongly about his political stance. But that's not what they were saying.
No.
Sean didn't do it publicly. They didn't fire him. Sean sent him a private note, which, again, Sean has a ton of skin in the game. As Ricky, I would have hoped that maybe my stance would have been oh my God, I really stepped on Sean's toes. I disagree with Sean's point of view, but I understand that Sean is so intensely invested in this.
Yes.
And I understand that I have a very vague, limited understanding of it. I probably didn't care about this issue until 1 month ago.
And
Sean's been caring about this his whole life. And by the way, been marginalized against for his entire life.
Because of who he is.
Yeah, maybe he feels more intensely about it than I do. Maybe I should respect his, either take down the post or not, whatever, that's up to him. But then to quit your job because of it, I just think seems to be acting a little bit overacting, reacting.
And if Sean's, which I don't know for a fact, but I'm assuming Sean's rage was for the slide from the river to the sea.
Yes.
Which is a provocative statement, right? I think
which Ricky doesn't even understand.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's been adopted by kind of protesty people for to talk about, I think these days, Palestinian sovereignty, which is one thing, right? But really, it also can mean, and often has meant and does mean, pushing Israel, that there's no more Israel, that Palestine will be from the Jordan River, which is on the western flank, eastern part of the country, to the Mediterranean, no more Israel, right? So Ricky could have, if Ricky would have just posted something about ceasefire or about the tragedy that's happening or something, but that was very, very provocative on the nose, the from the river to the sea statement.
And I don't think he understood that.
I would imagine
I have no idea. I would presume that he didn't. I thought that Sean Thompson's letter to him privately was pretty strongly worded, But I also understand why Sean would feel that intensely about it.
Did you read the wonderful Beach Grit story about Sean Thompson's apartheid business?
Surfing great Sean Thompson's robust apartheid era defense of, quote, keeping politics out of surfing resurfaces in wake of current Israel-Hamas conflict.
And must give I thought this was a very poignant, very timely piece. I don't usually think my pieces are, but this one was, I think, thanks to Derek Riley, who remembered Sean Thompson's standing up, not against apartheid, but not for apartheid, but for those who are boycotting going to South Africa because of apartheid. And thank you so much to Matt Warshaw of the Encyclopedia of Surfing, Derek told me, hey, I remember Sean getting on Tom Carroll basically and saying, keep politics out of surfing. Asked Matt if he knows. Matt not only knew directly, had the article written by Derek Hind and sent it directly to me, where Derek Hind covered this, and I do believe it was 1982. So to set the table here for the listener, did you read it?
No.
Oh, so in 1982, South Africa, apartheid state, there was rumbling amongst the surfers of boycotting the events in South Africa. Sean Thompson, which Tom Carroll, who was sponsored by Instinct, did boycott. Instinct dropped him, and then he went on to sign, I think it was surfing's first $1 million contract with Quicksilver. So everything turned out good for Tom Carroll. Derek, in his book, Derek wrote a book, I don't know if you know this, about Australia's old Prime Minister, Bob Hawke, an award-winning book, an amazing book. There's a passage in there about Bob Hawke and Tom Carroll talking about this, and Tom Carroll actually meeting Nelson Mandela, because Nelson Mandela went to Australia, Bob Hawke was Prime Minister, he introduced the two. Nelson Mandela thanked Tom Carroll so much for taking the stance of boycotting and bringing light to, the atrocities that, the horrible thing that apartheid was. In any case, Sean Thompson at this it was like a surfer's banquet or something, maybe an award, something rather else, stood up and said, how dare you all think about boycotting going to South Africa? That's not our job. Keep politics out of surfing. Our job is to be surfers. And if we open this Pandora's box, essentially, where does it stop? Are we going to boycott going to the United States because of its dirty dealings in Central America? Are we going to boycott going to France because it's, at that time, like dabbling in socialism? Are we going to boycott, went through a list of countries and their, bad things they were doing. So are we going to just boycott everyone for doing bad stuff? Which I don't know if that speech aged as well as it might have.
I think that Sean might make the argument today that the current situation is beyond political. This is not politics. This is a humanitarian issue.
Yes, though I think it could also be argued that apartheid was a humanitarian issue as well, and again, Sean was not defending the apartheid state. Sean was saying, hey, surfers, shut your mouths. Like, go out and surf. Nobody wants you to be political.
The funny thing is he is the most statesmanly surfer that we've ever had.
Yeah.
I feel like he has shared more of his opinions on political issues and taken kind of the stance of talking about things that aren't surfing, using his surfing platform to do it.
Well, guess what I'm going to do now? I should have had this idea earlier, but I'm going to talk to Sean Thompson about that speech today. How does that, because it was a very well delivered, well thought speech. And Derek Hind wrote it beautifully and said the surfers in the room were all Sean had it prepared and went up and drilled them all. And it, caused a stir. So I would love to revisit that speech with Sean. And do you feel the same way today? Knowing all that we know about apartheid, and obviously everyone knew it was awful then too, but apartheid has some things aged better than others. Apartheid has aged absolutely as poorly as it should always have aged keeping black people separate and not equal is very unchill.
Is he engaged? Will he be willing to have the conversation?
I think so. Yeah. I called him. Open? I actually called him because I wanted, when I was writing that story, and yeah, he didn't call back, but I'll hit him up again.
Okay.
I heard that, I heard from someone that Sean Thompson was not a fan. But then Derek reached out to him and said, "Are you not a fan, Sean Thompson?" And Sean Thompson said, "No, it's not true." So yeah.
I ran into one of Beach Grit's commenters, prolific commenters yesterday in the wild.
Ooh, commenter in the wild. Who was it?
I'll tell you off air. I don't know if he wants me to reveal him, because people could triangulate my location yesterday and then know whose name it is, and then they'd be like, "Oh, he lives there." You know?
Fantastic.
So I don't want to out him.
Okay.
But yeah, I was interviewing somebody and for the podcast, and he came over to chat a little bit, and he's like, "Wait a second, are you David Lee?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I'm so-and-so on Beach Grit." I'm like, I've had that happen a couple of times, and he and I had a very limited exchange, so I didn't really get a read on his personality.
Yeah.
But when I've had it happen in the past, it was a very interesting experience in that people's persona online, of course, is a persona.
Yeah.
And it is crass.
Yeah.
And it is, brash or whatever.
Yeah.
And then in person, they're delightful.
Yeah.
And you're just like, whoa, I can't believe this is you, you know?
But it makes the public square like that fun, I think. Like, I think it keeps it spicy. And I would hope that, and it feels that way at Beach Grit more or less, is that people don't take stuff personally. Like, it's fun to sling arrows at each other, right?
Totally.
And then but you don't have to like go punch somebody in the nose. Like, you could still be like, oh, whatever. You can disagree and then also be very cordial publicly, I feel.
Yeah. It was really a funny experience.
Great.
Well, let us know how that goes with Sean Thompson.
I will.
Be keeping track of it. And then in Ruka business, Billy Kemper's off the team, Asher Pacey's off the team, Noah Beshan's off the team, Kaniala Stewart's off the team, the two Chandler Groms from Kauai are off the team. They were all offered contracts. They all declined.
I saw this headline on Stab and I should have clicked, but I didn't click. But give me the rundown of why they declined.
Nobody said yet. The presumption from Michael Ciamarella, who wrote the article, is that Pat Tenori is probably building a new business and he's going to bring them all with him. Or they're, presuming that he's going to bring them with them. And the way Billy did take to Instagram, as I mentioned. I don't have his Instagram comment pulled up in front of me, but basically what Billy said was, Ruka's been phenomenal. To me, it's been phenomenal to work with them. It was phenomenal because of the leadership under Pat Tenori. I love him. I will continue to love him. I will continue to support whatever he does next. But it feels disingenuous for me to stay at Ruka at this point under a lack of leadership.
Okay, so this really was, they've got something lined up, or they feel like there's something lined up for them.
The other detail that Stab did report was the numbers that each surfer was being offered in their contract.
Which was?
Asher Pacey was $50,000 a year. Noah Beshan, I think, was $80,000 a year. Everybody's contract had been cut almost in half or more. And so, obviously, I don't know, it should be stated that Ruka is part of the Authentic Brands Group buyout. And so everything is different now, essentially. Yeah. It was a small brand. It then became a large brand, but now it's a giant conglomerately owned brand.
Well, and it's all Authentic Brands does is license, right? Like they are a licensing brand.
The least authentic thing on the planet, by the way.
It's a licensing. It's a licensing business. So they will throw the Ruka's balance of opposites on whatever they want. It's licensing. It's a logo.
That was the balance of opposites that they were always aiming for.
Yep.
Was
be a
to
logo.
Be called Authentic Brands Group and be the least authentic.
Yep.
That is the balance.
That is the balance. That is exactly the balance of opposites.
So understandable that all those people are off, that they would not take that offer to go work for a nameless, faceless conglomerate.
Except it wouldn't if you don't have anything else. If you're Asher Pacey thinking, $50,000, this is better than $0,000, right? Like, just got to do it.
Unless it creates a conflict of interest to work with other brands.
I mean, precisely. So he must, though, have, because ain't nobody out there in the space, I'll tell you now, is breaking out the wallets for anyone, right? Especially on the clothing side. So it's not like he's turning down Ruka's $50,000 because Billabong, who's also owned by Authentic Brands Group, is offering 100. There is nobody. It is as low tide as it's ever been out there, right? And so he's not turning it down for nothing.
In the old model way.
In the old model way, but still, like having $50,000, a little travel budget, maybe all this kind of stuff. I would imagine the only way you turn that down is if somebody's there saying, "Hold on, we got something in the works," and it might not even be as much as that, but it's something else, right? I don't think, and particularly if you're Billy Kemper, like it's not, what is Billy Kemper gonna do? It's not like Billy Kemper has a, nothing against Billy Kemper here, but I think Billy Kemper's persona didn't really work on the general public like they wanted it to, right?
Well, if you read the comments sections on any of this stuff, including his own Instagram posts, they would agree with what you're talking about.
I mean, it seems like the WSL really got behind Billy as this is the story we are going to push. I think it is the one thing the WSL Studios actually produced was the Billy Kemper series. And I never heard anybody talk about it. I don't know. Billy is great, but I think there's something about it that I just don't think really translates to broad appeal.
I don't know if it was in that documentary series or elsewhere, but he has a pretty famous quote at this point talking about the ocean is his office. And so he's going to take whatever wave comes his anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's his office. He wouldn't come into your accounting office and then take the pencil out of your hand and start doing math problems. So you should stay out of his way, basically.
Yeah.
So the general public's vibe at this point is like, oh, the big muscled Hawaiian dude with tattoos telling us to get off his wave. He can go F himself.
He's a little fella too. Have you ever met Billy Kemper?
No.
Yeah, I met him at I think ironically at the WSL Big Wave Awards. Or no, it was at what's the worst surfing movie ever? Chasing Mavericks. I think it was on the red carpet at Chasing Mavericks, maybe. In any case, he had a cowboy hat on, I recall, and I thought, that's not a very good look, Billy Kemper.
Well, he additionally, we talked about it, or maybe we didn't even talk about, but he took Hawaiian Airlines to task.
He did.
For
Good for him.
Policy, and Hawaiian Airlines amended their policy this past week.
That's the thing. I want to be a Billy Kemper fan. I want to get behind him because he does feel like he's unafraid to speak his mind. He is a force, and maybe it's just the WSL taint on him. Maybe it is Eric Logan being a real Billy Kemper fan makes me think, yeah, something wrong.
Well, in regard to what are these guys going to do without that paycheck, my thought is related to the Bethany Hamilton conversation from last week, which is enterprising, young, talented people can recreate that paycheck on their own.
Noah Beshin is the only one there, I'm going to say, who has even
Billy could. Billy could follow the lead of Nathan Florence or any of those guys.
That's the problem. People want to watch actually Nathan. Like I will say, Nathan Florence is a great content producer, right? Nathan Florence does interesting things. I watched his Mulligmore. Is that how you pronounce it? Mulligmore. I watched his Mulligmore clip. I don't watch YouTube surf clips. I watched that one for I think all the way through.
It's crazy.
He knows how to tell a story. He knows how to put it together.
Surfing's amazing.
People just take this fully for granted. They're like, Billy Kemper, go do that. Billy Kemper, I don't know that he can tell a story. I don't know that people care to hear what stories he has to tell. Like, where do you fit in? Nathan Florence did a great job. He scanned the landscape. I think he looked at Ben Gravy doing stupid shit. And he said, I don't want to do that. I can't do that. I'm not going to go head to head with Ben Gravy doing stupid shit. He looked at Jamie O'Brien doing stupid shit plus big shit and said, I don't want to do that. He found a niche of big, interesting waves, but not just that with real, none of this. Yeah. I will say that Nathan Florence is unique in his ability to make this work. Where Billy Kemper, I don't think would be. I think he could do whatever he wanted and people would say, who cares, to be honest. I mean, I think he had a full production doing just his life. What was it called? Life of Billy Kemper or My Life as a Cowboy? It was just called
Billy.
Yeah, Billy, exactly. Yeah. He had a full production and that didn't. So if that's not going to make the needle move, then what is of your dumb YouTube?
The reality is whenever anybody does well at it, they do it their own way.
Yeah.
Nathan Florence's way is different than the ones that you
Is Nathan no longer with Koa?
They have a podcast together, but they have separate YouTube channels.
Okay.
But so I think that Billy could reinvent and do it his own way. But the real unlock, which is a unique talent set, which is content creation on a hamster wheel. So banging out those videos every week, twice a week for some of those guys.
It's a way harder job than being sponsored by Ruka.
Way harder. And so you have to have a real passion and drive to do that.
Or even just I'm going down to the coal mines today.
That's what it becomes, and then lay out a bunch of cash to pay the filmer and to do all of it until you get traction enough to sell advertisers on it and make the money back. So I'm not convinced that Billy is that guy, but I'm just saying enterprising young folk, Asher Pacey, can have an OnlyFans account. You know what I mean? Like he could do something. He could create something and do something if they're enterprising, which I'm not convinced that he necessarily is, you know. But
imagine, I mean, would you be scared if you were one of these enterprise or one of these younger surfers before, in the before times, a surfer could get dropped and then go, or whatever, their surfing career could run its course and then they would go work for a brand. The surf industry would take them on. There's no more surf industry. There is nothing these guys can do anymore that's surf related. Besides, your options are OnlyFans, make a YouTube channel that's probably not going to work. Let's be honest. Like the saturation there's already a lot of YouTube content. You know, I don't know that the capacity is infinite for this.
No.
And
I don't feel bad for them at all, and I like it better now.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad for them at all. They were lucky to ever make a paycheck in the first place. Secondly, if you love surfing, keep surfing.
Yeah.
And publish the clips on Instagram,
but here's the
we'll keep watching.
Here's the problem, though. This generation, especially the Asher Pacey age, right? They grew up, and I don't know, Asher Pacey might have gone to school and whatever. Has tradesman ability, whatever. I don't know. There's not a screed against Asher Pacey. Asher seems like a great guy. Just saying, the Asher Paceys, the guys who probably didn't invest in another skill or anything else. I guess you can be a surf instructor. I guess that is the last bastion because that is your skill, and then you can go instruct.
Go learn a skill. I mean, there's a lot of examples. No, it's not too late. Laurie Towner, got out of, he was with Billabong when he was a young kid and then went and became like a tiler or something. Yeah. Like learned a trade. Yeah. And Jay Davies, I think he's like a tugboat captain at this point, So you can go learn a trade. And by the way, they're still surfing and they're still advancing in their surfing actually. And we still get to see some of their surfing. I would even make an argument that they become a lot more interesting surfers. I mean,
I would totally agree. But do you think that Laurie Towner and when he gets up at 4:30 a.m. to go tile, or, driving a tugboat seems pretty cool. So maybe Jay Davies feels cool every day.
So the circle back on that, or kind of the full circle moment, is he then, I think, got a gig with Neat Essentials. Yeah. And so now he's kind of able to surf again for a living. But he did go do the work for a couple of years and realized how much better it is to be a pro surfer.
This is where I suppose I just offer real thanks that I was never even close to being good enough to even halfway begin to imagine a career as a pro surfer. Yeah. I got saved.
Yeah.
Went to school.
Do you wish you would have YouTubed instead of podcasted?
Thankfully we do that too. Just nobody watches it.
John Florence in the WSL. John, remember I told you like a month ago, I'm like, yeah, Vivo Footwear wanted to send me a free pair of shoes and asked like if I could do something.
Yeah.
If they offered an interview with John, I would take the interview with John. That is not what they offered.
Yeah.
They just wanted me, I think, to talk about Vivo footwear
shoes.
On-wear,
yep.
Which here we are. But but the Inertia published an Instagram with a little interview snippet with John, and it was presented by Vivo Footwear. And I'm like, dang it, they took the free shoes. And apparently they got the interview with John. Or maybe he only offered the interview to them. I have no idea.
No, the only one for guarantee, this is what it is, the only one that took the Vivo shoes because they liked them was the Inertia. And then
that's a great point.
It is totally true. And then they got the interview, yes. But they're the only ones who are like, sweet, Vivo shoes.
I've been wanting a pair. Yeah. John in his interview with Joe Cardberry. And by the way, phenomenal job, Joe, for actually getting these hard-hitting questions
Great job,
answered.
Joe.
Yeah. I was like, because when I saw the whole setup, I'm like, well, it's a fluff piece for sure. And then I read John's quote, and I'm like, this is exactly what I want to know from John.
Yeah.
So good job, Joe.
Credit where credit is due.
Quote, John, quote, I think about quitting all the time. Quitting the tour, by the way. It's hard for me because my personality doesn't necessarily fit competing so well. And especially the new format of tour over the last couple of years, the environment of it has really changed a lot. It doesn't fit my personality anymore. I definitely won't do it if I don't think that I can win a world title. I'll continue to do it as long as I can win a world title and as long as I'm having fun, end quote.
Such a shot over the bow, which we talked about this forever ago, but it's such a shot over the bow of finals day, which, it's done. So John, newsflash, he will not ever win a world title again as long as finals day is at lower trestles.
Correct.
Like
I think that's a foregone conclusion.
it is done and dusted. So if you know you cannot, and it's another news flash in case you weren't reading the news, it is at Trestles for the next 3 years. And so it's not like, this is done. You are not going to win a title in the next 3 years. Like,
insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
So it's
for the WSL to undercut their own best interests so heavily by currently have the world's greatest surfers on tour.
Yep.
That wasn't always the case. They have. And they're just squandering all of it. And by the way, John shouldn't use his best years surfing crappy waves on tour.
No.
He should be using his best years the way that his brother is using them, chasing the best swells on the planet.
I mean, for those football fans out there, I don't often watch the Manning cast, but when I do catch it, it really makes me chuckle. Eli Manning and his brother Peyton Manning. Can't believe I forgot Peyton's name there for a second.
Can't believe I knew it.
Yeah. But they were both, phenomenal Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And now they basically simulcast, what is it, Monday Night Football, whichever Thursday, it's one of the games. And their commentary is so funny. Their knowledge is funny. Their bouncing back and forth is funny. All of it's really, really, really good, interesting, perfect. It's great, which John and Nathan, I would imagine, would have such a great, that is something I would fully watch and listen to on the regular. If it was John and Nathan traveling, talking, doing whatever, that seems like a great pairing.
Last year, Nathan did it for one of the pipe events. I don't remember if it was the Pipe Masters. I don't think it was the Pipe Masters. It was Dewey Backdoor Shootout, maybe.
Yeah.
Because he was injured. So he was sitting out, and he's broadcast live on YouTube, on his YouTube channel, just like watching the event and making comments about it, with his wife coming in and giving him like a sandwich in the middle of it and stuff. And it was super insightful and entertaining.
He's great. He is a great, but back to John, losing John for the World Surf League, losing John.
Disaster.
But we talked about this forever ago, and it's true.
We predicted it because the writing was so clearly on the wall.
But all of the writing's on the wall. Like this, and again, the World Surf League is not long for this world. The John's going to go. My prediction at this point is it probably gets given to Brazil, to a Brazilian interest at some point, and then pro surfing just becomes more or less a Brazilian sport. Like,
that's a weird prediction.
But that's it right there.
Who would they give it to and why?
Because Dirk Ziff somebody will take some of the debt, something like he'll just be able to unload it at some point. And like Brazil is the only country I feel that it's either Brazil or Australia. I don't think Australia,
I just don't know who the entity would be.
It is like a TV station or something, right? Like some Brazilian billionaire who has a media company or something, who's just like both out of, this is interesting and whatever. But yeah, I think that's the only place that truly will end up caring. The WSL has done such a bad job at destroying it.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
To you and I point out the writing on the wall for a lot of this stuff, but specifically losing these kind of top level athletes
in their prime,
and to watch them slip through the fingers of the WSL in this way is mind blowing. That nobody within the organization would stop the bleeding.
No, and nobody would say, "Hey, look, we're gonna
even make an attempt.
We're gonna lose these guys." Like, bringing Cloudbreak back was really good, but it's still they'll want to serve Cloudbreak. But
when the entire rest of the world, everybody in their comments section on Instagram, every podcast, all of it, the professional surfers, athletes who do have YouTube channels have been addressing it even. All of them saying the same thing. It's this cacophony of noise from their own audience saying finals day is stupid, or whatever, the mid-year cut is stupid, or whatever. And they're just like,
nope,
completely oblivious and ignoring all of it.
I mean, the fact that John is no lightning rod. John is no, Yeah, he doesn't like to, I don't think, he's a calm, quiet guy. For him to be so open and candid about that, to me, is very, very telling of basically saying, I won't be on tour.
So what about this news yesterday? It really kind of an interesting concept. Florence Marine X, his company, and partnering with Vizsla are sponsoring the Pipe Pro, which is the WSL event at the beginning of the year.
The premium WSL event, it could be argued, like the most, they devalued it by moving it to the front of the year, but still, like
And
Pipeline,
losing the Pipe Masters title.
yes,
Yeah.
I mean, they've really screwed it up as badly as you can. But Pipeline, sponsoring Pipeline, Vissla and Florence, which both are clothing
Yeah, they're competing
manufacturers,
brands, but they're partnering. They have specialty like pop-up shops that they've set up and everything.
which I love that. I love Vissla, love Florence, right? But they had to basically get it for free. Neither of them have much operating capital to like title sponsor an event to do it together. So they're splitting it, right?
Splitting the cost.
Splitting the cost, two competing brands, which again, there's no bad blood there, but still you're both clothing and clothing, wetsuits and wetsuits. Like you're do the same stuff. This has, I mean, again, the 18th nail in the coffin. This has to be the WSL has to be giving these sponsorships away at this point, basically.
So it's a very interesting move. And my perception on it is, you're right, it is odd for two competing brands to partner. But what this looks like to me is there's these giant conglomerates now. Us small guys, we're a band of brothers. We might as well lock arms to kind of take on the conglomerates and do this together.
Sure.
Like Paul Naudet is a surfboard shaper.
Yeah.
Bob Hurley's a surfboard shaper originally,
Yeah.
before any of this. You know what I mean? Like they are as core as it gets.
Yes.
They've built these brands around their core. They actually left. They both left, right? Billabong?
Yeah.
Previously?
Yep.
So they both come from the same exact background, and they grew those brands to a point that I think now, you know, they understand mistakes that were made along the way, maybe, or missteps or whatever, or just, so the brands that they've built now, the core brands that they've built now, they're never intending to build to the level of what they previously built those companies at. And so this is part of the new method, which is we're not competitors. We're brothers in arms at this point. There's room for both of us. You know who is the competitor is the conglomerate.
Which, and I love this, right? And it makes me definitely like, it makes me want to go buy something for Florence and want to go buy something for Vissla. I love that. It's interesting to me, I suppose, though, that and maybe their vision is probably a lot longer than mine in terms of hitching your cart to the WSL at all, though. Like giving WSL any cover for their, like, just force Bailey Ladders into the title sponsorship of Pipeline and just make the WSL go away quicker.
I think that you're right. And the longer term thing that they're looking at is Pipeline as a venue and as a contest, just a contest, is larger than the WSL.
Yes.
It was before the WSL. It'll be after the WSL. And we can come in here and, like you said, get it for pennies on the dollar, or essentially get it for free. We can actually probably wrench some control away from the WSL, which we feel like they have taken this thing and run it into a ditch. We can at least maybe be involved in and extort some amount of influence over this thing that is bigger than them and is precious to us.
And credit to both Naudet and Bob Hurley for
seeing an opportunity
and not being so like, screw the WSL, or whatever. Not that they had that personality anyway, not that they were that way, but it seems like they are being the bigger men here and saying, no, well, let's do this. But also, yeah, it had to have been for a song. There's no way that,
well, for sure,
that Vissla or Florence was going to say, yeah, okay, this, we got to pay $500,000 for this thing. But,
But wasn't it sponsored by Billabong last year still?
No.
I think it was the Billabong
Pipe. No,
Pipe
because
Pro.
I don't think
They
so.
were
'Cause
running
it's
the-
Billabong Pipe Masters still.
No, it's Vans.
Vans Pipe Masters. Okay, so it must have been
was
the Billabong Pipe Pro.
I'm almost certain it was.
Yeah, so that means Authentic Brands like, nope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, they saw an opportunity here, and I think it's smart.
I mean, it's great. Even the awfulness of the World Surf League, the core surfer, or core surf fan will still watch contests and will particularly watch Pipe.
Exactly.
And so, yeah.
I see it as a smart move.
I mean, definitely a smart move. It's just,
depending on the kind of economics of it, but it seems like a smart
it's definitely a smart move for Vissla and Florence. It just seems like, again, it's a further nail in the WSL's coffin. The fact that competing brands, like at small level core surf brands, are sponsoring now, and they're not ponying up, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure it's for a very good deal.
Yeah. Well, we'll be watching. I don't know when that event starts. I think it's January or February.
I think it's the end of January.
End of January.
It's January 29th.
Speaking of small brands, Veyor watches. We've got a tool to live by here.
Exciting.
Listeners chime in. They want to know our opinions on things. And this segment is brought to you by Veyor, which you want to know our opinion about watches? Boom, buy a Veyor. American assembly, beautiful kind of classic aesthetics, and durable as you could possibly be.
Take mine surfing every time I go surfing. This thing does not leave my wrist, and it is, just keeps on ticking.
And it's
perfect time.
And it's powered by solar as well, which is kind of incredible.
I love that.
So yeah, you got to appreciate that. 6 hours of sunlight will run the watch for 6 months, which is unbelievable.
Even the self-winding ones, like you put that down for a couple days, man, you got to reset the date and everything. It's really annoying.
It's a bit of work.
Not with the Veyor.
No, this thing, you put it down for a month, put it back on, and it's still running. So anyways, if you want a Veyor watch, which by the way, you should get some for Christmas, do it as Christmas gifts. We have a 15% promo code, but guess what? I think the site is 20% off right now in relation to Thanksgiving, Black Friday. So just get the 20% discount. That beats our discount. But Veyor is spelled V-A-E-R. Veyor watches, free USA shipping, easy returns, waterproof warranty. Here we go. Listener line.
Jazz David, just a question for the grit. So I've been buying a couple boards from my buddy who is starting out a shaping business in Huntington. Makes great boards. I've really enjoyed my first one and ordered a second one. On the first board, he kind of messed up the coloring, got the color I wanted, but I wanted to do deck and rails, and so he did bottom and rails. I'm like, all right, whatever, not a big deal. So second board I order, I again asked for deck and rails colored, and again he gave bottom and rails colored. And I figure, I don't know if I want to tell him or not, just because, board's a board, operates great, isn't exactly what I ordered, but whatever. But on the other hand, should I tell him to make sure he doesn't make the mistake with other customers? I don't know. I would appreciate your advice.
Touchy.
Oh, so touchy. So touchy. I'm going to say, don't tell him. I'm going to say, let him go out and live or die on his own. I'm going to say, if his board is good enough, and if the customer comes in and says, hey, you're not getting this right, let them deal with it. Right? What do you say?
It depends. Is his buddy inept?
Yeah.
Is the shaper inept, or is he an artist?
Good question.
Because if he had an artistic ambition,
he knows better than you in some way.
Correct.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then you got to let the artist let his freak flag fly. And I have a freak flag artist friend named Maurice Cole. Yeah. And I ordered a surfboard from him one time. I think you might have been there. We were at the Surfing Heritage and Culture Center, and he opened up the back of his car and he had these boards in there, and I was like, dude, this thing is sick. What is this?
Yeah.
Like, can I get one of these? And he's like, yeah, definitely. And then 2 months later, when I got the board, I was like, this is not even the same model. I'm like, I don't remember the model name of what he told me, but I remember
not this.
This is a different one.
Yeah.
And what did I do?
Surfed it.
Did not say a word. Loved the board.
Yes, exactly.
Surfed the board. Loved the board.
And that is exactly it. But either way, if your friend is inept, you telling him that and it's not going to fix anything. He's inept.
That's a good point.
If you change his freak flagness, if you tinker with that, maybe his magic, and you saying something wrecks that magic, right?
Yeah.
You let him go sink or swim. Let him leave the nest and fly or drop dead.
I agree. I think, and just in general with a surfboard shaper specifically, I'm all for not giving much direction.
Yeah.
You go in there, you kind of tell them maybe what the gap in your quiver is, or what your general thought is.
Yeah.
You leave it in their hands.
Totally. I mean, I think in terms of shaper, they know best almost always. And for me, it is the most specific I'll get is like, I want to just paddle into mushy waves or whatever. Like, give me basically more foam, less foam.
I've heard horror stories of customers from shapers being like, oh, the customer wanted a specific thing in a specific orange. And then I made the board for them. They came to pick it up and it was a different tint of orange than they were expecting. And so they didn't take the board.
Nasty.
And I'm just like, are you kidding me? The slightly different color of orange, right? So that's the worst possible scenario. But I think the best possible scenario is leave it in the shaper's hands.
Yeah.
Even asking, I mean, his example specifically, I wanted deck and rails color. I think that's too much direction.
I think so too. Like
I could see, hey, I like this other board that you did that had this aesthetic, but keep that in mind, but do you.
Let the artist be.
Let the artist be.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I have a bro who's shaping boards. Well, almost always it comes with a bro deal.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the scourge of the surfboard industry is that shapers have to get into the business by selling surfboards to friends, and therefore they're never getting paid the full charge, full freight for the board. And then how do you grow your business on running everything on a discount? And they find themselves in this perpetual cycle. And so if you are the bro getting the bro deal, then you extra can't open your mouth.
Complain. You keep that mouth shut.
That's how I feel about it.
Tool to live by.
Tool to live by. Brought to you by Veyor Watches. VeyorWatches.com. Enjoy those holiday sales. Do you want to hear a pro in the wild?
Yes, I sure do.
All right. David and Chaz, I'd like to share this pros in the wild story from the late 90s. At that time, I lived in San Diego, and most weekends were spent driving up and down the coast to trestles or exploring Mexican spots like K38 and San Miguel. On one particular weekend, I embarked on a solo journey to San Miguel, greeted by sunny skies, pumping swell, and the promise of long peeling rights. Upon my arrival, a van pulled up beside me, containing a group of Californian surfers. Among them was one of my surf heroes, Brad Gerlach. Another pro surfer, unknown and with an unbranded board, caught my attention with a fierce intensity in his eyes as he stretched and prepared to paddle out. He seemed ready to battle. After suiting up, I hit the water almost simultaneously with Brad and the enigmatic surfer. Sharing the lineup with Brad was an honor as he showcased his flawless style. Yet the other surfer's unwavering intensity is what truly impressed me that day. He shredded the waves, sending buckets of spray into the air, and consistently found himself barreled on wave after wave, leaving me in awe. He may have ridden more waves in that 30 minutes than the entire combined crowd. During a set wave, I managed to snag one of the leftovers, and with most of the crowd paddling out, they were on the inside paddling out, I nervously dropped in, stalling to find a modest barrel, and to my astonishment, Brad was close on the shoulder paddling out, and he let out a booming woohoo in a surreal moment. Despite my self-identifying status as a decent surfer, that gesture held immeasurable significance for me. Anyways, years later, and quite by accident, I stumbled upon a VHS surf movie called Daredevils 3, which you and I know.
Yes.
Which
Jesse Schluntz.
Exactly. Which featured our exact session at San Miguel. The mystery surfer was revealed in text on the screen. Seth Helmer, the very individual tearing the waves apart that I saw that day. Seth's raw power was magnificently captured, standing out in that segment. However, they only showcased a fraction of the waves, and watching him carve through the lineup evoked fond recollections. The edit captured just a mere glimpse of what I had personally witnessed, and Seth surfed with unwavering determination and a fierce intensity that persisted relentlessly. This experience undoubtedly ranks among the pinnacle moments of my surfing journey. Today I reside in New Zealand, and I had the opportunity actually to recount part of this story to Gur, who's living in Australia. And here's to the cherished moments, the camaraderie, and the unwavering passion that connected all of us. Cheers, Flav.
Beautiful.
What I love about it is that ties into what we were talking about with last week about Toby Martin, Troy Brooks, earlier in the show, Ricky Basnet, these names that pop up that are like lost in the recesses of your brain.
But they're there.
And also those guys, like in that moment, Seth Helmer, could have been the next.
Yeah.
Just with the kind of the right marketing, with the right brand support, you know, and he just didn't get it for whatever reason. And I think of David Weir. I mean, speaking of South Africans, when you were talking about
David Weir.
when you're talking about Ricky Basnet, I was like, wonder whatever happened to David Weir.
Yeah.
Like unbelievable style.
And
looked like Joel Parkinson to me.
When they, and you know, and now I think we're conditioned to know that these people who pop up on tour, they're going to fall off, right? Like rarely do you think, oh, this guy's, but David Weir, I think was one of those. So I was like, this guy could stick around.
He could win a world title.
Yeah.
Like he had, you know, and so it's kind of interesting just to think. And in that era where surf videos were so prominent and it was a local filmer filming their local spots, you got a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
Where it was like the local guy who's shown head and shoulders above the rest, who got invited on a trip with Brad, who had broken through, you know, and so he was able to kind of, you'd see toe to toe. Frankie Oberholzer with Tom Curran surfing J-Bay, and Frankie was going toe to toe, you know?
Bron Wessenstam just blowing it up at Huntington Beach.
David Pinto. Do you remember Dave Pinto?
Yeah.
I remember Dave Pinto, like in the magazines and in videos, and then rolling up at Uppers and seeing Dave Pinto surf in real life and just being like, oh,
unbelievable.
My God.
Yeah.
You know?
These guys are so lucky because if all the chips had fallen in their direction, I guess, they would be the ones today turning down $50,000 from Ruka.
That's true.
Instead, they have real lives.
Getting a real paycheck.
Yeah.
With security.
Yep.
401k.
Yep. All of it.
Yeah. Well, congrats to those who didn't make it. Here's our shout out to you. All right. Well, let's go to commercial break. We will come back with Barrel or Not.
Great.
All right, Chaz, we're back. Thanks to LinkedIn.
Thank you, LinkedIn.
Thanks, LinkedIn. We
I hope,
appreciate it.
I mean, I would really, really, really like to know how Eric Logan's speaking tour is going.
So I saw.
We never talked about this.
No, we didn't. What's the story?
You didn't see?
No.
Eric Logan is now a motivational speaker, legitimately.
Well, I saw this. I didn't know how much of it was legitimate.
It's true. It's true. He has a speaking agent, like an agency that does.
Oh my gosh.
And the three things he talks about, he has three specific things, which is like, I can't even remember what they are. It's like leadership. It's all like surf related, you know, rising through the ranks to your dream job, something. I can't imagine. I cannot for the life of me imagine anyone hiring him. Because there's this thing, I don't know if you're aware of this thing, David Lee Scales, called Google. If you Google Eric Logan, what you get is 30, maybe 40 pages now of beach crit stories. One after the other. There's no other stories. There is beach crit stories.
Nothing about Oprah Winfrey.
Nothing. There is, in the first 30 pages of Google, there is stories about detailing every bit of Eric Logan's run of the WSL. And so I don't know how, if you're a company saying, hey, we got to get the speaker, look at this. There's the former CEO of World Surf League. That sounds cool. And then book. Wouldn't you think that you've never heard of him? Wouldn't you think that let's Google him and then just see like, oh, he's a laughingstock. Well, let's maybe not hire him.
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah.
So has anybody hired him?
That's what I would love to know. I wish LinkedIn could help us find out.
He would be posting about it socially if
Yes.
he had any success with anything at all.
Well, we talked, or we didn't talk about this either. Sal Masakela, Salema, who had been tarnished, who had been an embarrassment, got embarrassed publicly. He came back to social media pretty quickly. Like, I think, which makes me think, and Eric still is not there, which makes me think that Salema Masakela's narcissism is much greater than Eric Logan's.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, because Salema got drug
excoriated.
Got drug a lot harder. Eric's thing was secret, like fully drug.
So for those who don't know, who's dating
Lupita Nyong'o,
Academy Award winner.
Academy Award winner.
Yeah,
yes,
Lupita Nyong'o, and honestly, they looked blissful together.
They did,
and I think we might have even taken bets, maybe on air, maybe off air, about how long that would last.
Yeah, I think I was right.
Yeah, you were right. Well, it depends. It turned out to be 8 months. I don't know what you picked.
We have to go back in the show. Any listener who remembers.
So the reason this is at the front of my mind is because the woman who edits our videos for us, she weighed in on the bet because you and I talked about it on air, and then that week she emailed me and she's like, hey, I've got a thought on this. Like, I don't see it going the long haul. I'm siding with Chaz. I think you might have said a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, it'll go more than a year. And you're like, no, a year at the most. Her bet was under a year.
So she won
because it was 8 months.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you guys saw, because when I saw them go public with it, I was like, man, this feels like a great fit for me. But Lupita, wow,
Hammered him.
roasted him.
But
I mean, there's a
fried
couple of
him up.
ways. There's a couple ways to exit a relationship. She did it in a way that felt like the high ground while burning the low road.
I mean, completely. She took the high ground while napalming the low road.
It's impossible to take the high ground while doing that, and she figured out the path.
She's an Academy Award winner, man.
I walked
She's
away
unique.
from it going, I still love her.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, because Sal did her dirty. That's what she had her heart broken.
But she didn't even
Nope.
say the word dirty.
Nope.
She said that
It was
something to the effect of
It was a great
somebody, taking advantage of your trust. When you trust somebody and they deceive you. I
yeah,
think
it was a
maybe-
great deception, something.
Yeah.
Yeah, the deceiver. But Sal took his public square flogging and then got right back on social media with selfie time, selfie with Sal,
And
Salema,
all positivity.
all positivity. And yeah, so I think this a lot. I was just saying it to my mother, in fact, the other day, is I have no idea how somebody whose job is not directly related to social media stuff is on social media. What? Why? Salema's job is not related. He's a public figure, sure, in terms of being a broadcaster, but his broadcast stuff is not directly, he's not pushing anywhere. He does not need to be on social media at all. And yet he chooses to selfie out him lifting weights with all this stuff, right? And I thought Eric Logan was in that same camp. I thought Eric Logan couldn't stop looking at Eric Logan. Come to find out, Eric Logan got fired. Instagram has been shuttered since the moment, right? It's been now months of nothing.
Yeah, the general idea, of course, is building your own profile then gives you more access and entree to jobs, and those jobs then pay more depending on your social following. So that's the method that Salema presumably is operating under.
Maybe, but you could just tell he enjoys it.
Be that as it may, that's what we thought Eric Logan was doing as well. So it must be that he had a change of heart entirely. I mean, the cost of the social media thing isn't worth the return on it.
Or Eric Logan really was doing it to try to build the WSL, but then he's like, okay, this is done. They threw me out with the bathwater. Screw them anyhow. But I'm just too old to be doing this.
Yeah,
which is exactly what Salema should be thinking too. As I'm a 52-year-old man who's doing like heart eye emoji stuff.
It's hard. It really is hard for me to relate to. And I have the thought regularly of just getting off of it entirely.
But you can't. I mean, that's same. I would do too, but I can't either. I do love interactions with people in the DMs. Like it's a conduit to conversation. I appreciate it for that. I need it to push Beach Grit. You need it to push podcasts. So you're not like doing a weightlifting selfie.
No, I totally understand that distinction, but even the version of us using it for the business feels unmanageable at a certain point.
Yeah.
Like you can't maintain all of the communications. And if you really want to do the pushing well, we're not doing it very well.
No, I'm doing it horribly.
We're doing it very poorly. We're doing kind of like just posting about it.
Yeah.
But we're not really trying to work the algorithm and create interesting content
I'm doing
for
it,
that platform.
I guess, to your point, either do something well or don't do it at all, which I suppose we should not do it at all.
That would be one stance.
But
I've done that for 6 months at a time.
Yeah.
Like just kind of not manage it.
But if somebody sat down to me right now and said, hey, you either do your socials well or don't do it, I would say, so long, socials.
Don't do it. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think life would be way better.
Oh, my goodness.
Life would be more enjoyable. Personal life would be less stressful.
But I suppose to Lupita, what I saw Lupita finding out about Salema was exactly Salema getting back onto social media. Sal's love of Sal, Salema's love of Salema. Sorry. He's a real jerk to go like Sal Masakela for so long. And then when it became, in vogue to become Salema Masakela, that's what he became.
Yeah.
It's pretty rude.
Well, we have a barrel or nah. I think all from listener line calls, actually. Nope, 2 from listener line calls, but we'll start with this one.
DLS and Chaz, TR, live and direct from the DR. I am fascinated with this situation where surfers when coming out of the water and greeting another surfer, customarily say something negative. Oh man, the tide's gotten a little high, or oh, the wind's on it, and worst of all, oh, you really missed it. What is it that makes surfers do this? I've never liked it, even as a child, and I will always say something positive. No matter how bad the waves are, I will say, you're going to have fun. At the very, very least, barrel or nah, being negative whilst exiting the session. Thinking about doing a little vlog about this on Real Surf Stories YouTube. So let me know what you guys think. Have a great day and keep up the work.
I'm with Buddy TR from DR. Like, of course, the Endless Summer, you know, has like made a monument of this. You know, they have a whole scene in the Endless Summer about should have been here yesterday, should have been here an hour earlier, should have been here whenever, which you just take for granted. It's totally true. Getting out of the water, wind's on it now, you know, whatever. He's exactly right. But I totally get somebody, like, if somebody has time in the water, giving them 15 minutes later than it is so they can go in, right? I get clearing the lineup when you're in it. When you're coming out, session's over, it's done. You don't, like, there's nothing proprietary. They're already going there. It's not like they're saying, hey, if they said, where should I surf? You know, I'll get this sometimes rudely, or I should say rudely enough. I will oftentimes tell them to go surf a place that I never like to surf. So if I'm like coming up where there's like 4 options, they say, oh, where'd you go out? I will lie and say, I went out over there. It was fun.
Smoke screen them.
Yeah. And so I get all that, but just being negs for neg's sake, what's the point of it? There's no point in it.
No, I think it's a
knee jerk.
It is a knee jerk that is something, I think what it's vested in is like, I'm cool. Like, oh, I surf better waves than this all the time.
Yeah, it's true.
Like I'm too cool for this, you know, oh, it's crappy today, or the tide just got too low, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm such a sophisticated observer of waves.
Yeah.
That, you know,
I point out the negativity
because I know what good is, and I know that's not good. And if I act stoked, then I look like a stinking Joe Turpel, where all is good, and then I'm a nerd.
Like if you're into food, and then you go to a restaurant, you're going to pick out some criticism
just to show
it identifies you as being an astute critic,
expert.
That's what it is.
That is so true. But yeah, let's all cancel that. We're not experts. Let's just admit.
I was just thinking about it. First of all, I don't want to talk to anybody when I get out of the water.
Yeah.
I mean, that's even at the beginning of the call. That was my first thought, was like, I'm exiting the water. I see somebody getting changed. I'm going to deviate my path if I have the opportunity to within 10 feet in hopes that they don't engage me in conversation. I would be okay if it was just, hey, how is it? And I just go, oh, it's all right, you know, or whatever but I'm worried that it's going to evolve into, what board are you riding?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Those fins are kind of cool. And then it becomes a conversation.
Yeah.
I don't want to do any of that.
Yeah.
So I'm always for keep my head down, keep my eyes away, and hopefully nothing happens. But if they do say,
that's okay.
How is it out there?
It's a couple fun ones.
I do almost always give a negative response.
It's true.
I almost always say,
yeah, wind's on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of junky.
Tide is weird.
Yeah. Because it always is junky. You know, like it always is not good.
Yeah. But you say, that's exactly what it is.
But TR's point of like, what are you, an idiot? This is way better than anything else that you could be doing.
And he's exactly right. You are going to have fun. Like whoever's going surfing, like I went out 2 days ago, the tide was so sucked low. It was like basically impossible to surf, and I still had fun. Like there's never a time, the only time you go out and don't have fun surfing is if somehow you have a really high expectation that you are going to rip that day.
Right. Which I've abandoned long ago.
Me too.
All right. Well, TR, thank you for that. We're going
no barrel on negativity.
No barrel on negativity. Okay, here we go. Oh shoot, I pushed the wrong thing.
Hey, great guys. Probably been done before by barrel or not, base coat. I've been surfing for like 24 years or something. I think I tried base coat when I first started out, and then I switched to sticky bumps, and I've been a sticky bumps guy for a long time. So never did base coat, just threw it on, never found any issues with it or any difference. But I'm looking to switch to foo wax. I mean, with the cost of a bar of wax, this stuff's supposed to be stickier. Let me give it a shot. But from what I've read, you should use base coat with it, which is going to be something new for me. I'm not against it, but I want to know if base coat is a barrel or not, or maybe it's a tool to live by. You should base coat. You shouldn't base coat. You don't need to. You do. Maybe it's controversial. Maybe I'm a kook. Let me know.
Interesting. It's never come up before in conversation.
No, it never has. But here's the thing. I got the barrel or not for you. And the tool to live by. I use base coat when I go to these places called the tropics, when your base coat is actually your wax. And then you come home from those places, and then you actually have some base coat on your board. But to his point, though, Sticky Bumps does not need Sticky Bumps Cool does not need base coat. You rub. Do you use Sticky Bumps?
I do. I'd used Sticky Bumps for my whole life, and now there's a new product called, this is not an advertisement, but Trees Wax. Oh. It's made non-petroleum surf wax, and he sent me a box, and it's incredible.
Really?
Well, I mean, it's every bit as good as any regular wax. It's just petroleum free.
Okay.
But I did for my entire life up until the last 4 months been using Sticky Bumps. That was my go-to.
I'm a big Sticky Bumper and can't even imagine this talk of tree wax. I'm curious, but
I'll give you some. I have in my car.
I'm a Sticky Bumper, and Sticky Bumps Cool is really the only wax you should be using until I hear otherwise or feel otherwise. And you don't need base coat with Sticky Bumps. And don't use foo wax. Have you ever used foo wax?
Oh, yeah, we got to do a foo conversation.
Oh man, it is gnarly. Like, I guess I get it for like Chloe Andino, or if you're like busting airs or something for some kind of surfing, it gets all over you. Like, it coats you in wax.
It's gooey.
It is goo wax.
So yeah, foo came into fashion or vogue 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, it was the Air Boys, like San Clemente Air Boys were all into it.
Kelly got some, and then like it kind of got out from there. It was a Brazilian guy named Foo, actually, who made this wax, and it is very, very sticky, but Sticky Bumps, regular surf wax is tacky.
Yeah.
This is actually sticky. And it's more liquid.
Yeah.
So like you can pinch it with your fingers, and when you separate your fingers, it's almost like bubble gum separating between your fingers. Like, that's how sticky it is. And you'll wax your board with it, and because it's got more liquidity in it, you'll wax your board, and as you pull the bar off your board, there's stringiness, like bubblegum stringiness and then it gets blown in the wind, and maybe it lands on you. Hopefully it doesn't.
I mean, it's going to land on you as soon as you start paddling out anyway. Your wetsuit or chest.
To everything.
Everything. It is like, I fully understand or don't understand at all. I would imagine that for obviously for high performance surfing, somehow that's good, right? Yeah. That they need that stickiness, where if you're high performance out there, then maybe foo is the wax for you. But otherwise,
even then, I was like, do they really need that extra bit of stickiness? As if your board comes detached from you and then suctions back to your foot.
Maybe it does, though. Maybe those strings connect.
So what I learned from Foo Wax, and I think they even recommend, is use it as a top coat. So it used to be base coat and then regular wax and then Foo, and Sticky Wax even makes a top coat product now.
That is
I think in relation to
Foo-esque.
Foo. So it's like just the last little glaze on top of the wax job is just a little layer of Foo. So he's asking base coat. Turns out now you can do top coat too.
You got to do 3 stinking coats
if you want to get wild. But I always use base coat.
Really?
And maybe I didn't need to. Now I'm knowing maybe if I'm using cool water wax locally or cold water wax.
Sticky Bumps. I think
maybe I never needed base coat in the first place, but I've always used base coat.
I think with a sex wax, I feel you need a base coat. I think sex wax doesn't grab on. You don't get those bumps with like, you'll just get a weird sheen with sex wax. With Sticky Bumps though, it bumps from the get. I mean, it's like you do your wax and you're good.
So it's levels of hardness essentially, right? So the base coat is built hard, so it adheres better to the fiberglass, but not so well to your foot.
Yes.
So if you can adhere to the fiberglass with a base coat, then you go mid coat adheres to that really easily and is grippy for your foot.
We should ask weirdo Ron from Board Porn what he does, because he is a wax master.
Because he has so many surfboards. He has to be. It makes perfect sense.
Such a weirdo, though. His wax jobs, I can't even imagine. doing that, what he does.
It's clearly, he is an artiste. He has a passion for the project, and he loves what he does.
And or deranged.
As a lot of artists can do. All right, well, got to the bottom of that one. Barrel?
I'm still a sticky bumps guy. So as long as I'm going, if you are sticky bumps, cool. I'm going no barrel, save your time.
All I know is I've always used base coat, and it's always worked for me. So I'm going barrel base coat. Okay. And him investing heavily in foo, you don't want to waste a bunch of money doing multiple layers of foo. So you go.
I don't recommend full stop going the foo. I think or just get ready for a big mess.
It is a big mess. Yeah. This turned into nah barrel for foo instead of yes barrel for base coat. All right. Final barrel or nah. Buying a car manufacturer's surfboard. Quote, German surfer Sebastian Steutner and Porsche create miracle surfboard to conquer world's biggest wave. We've seen Mercedes get into the board business with Garrett McNamara. We've seen Tesla get into the board business strictly to sell surfboards. What are your thoughts?
I'm going to say if you're out there chasing the World Surf League, Guinness Book of World Record wave tour, then by all means buy a Porsche board. If you're like actually doing it, I'd have to think that Porsche and Mercedes and all these guys are having technology and wind tunnels and blah, 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 that our dear friend John Peisel simply does not have. And I love John Peisel, and John Peisel, I sure makes wonderful big wave guns that get Nathan Florence into Mulligmore. But if it's about beating a world record, I'd say go Porsche. Sorry, Peisel.
So it's an interesting experiment because you do have these board builders who have honed their craft for decades and decades. And you have Porsche, who clearly is the master at what they do on a much, much, much greater scale with much more resource to invest in it. And so the thought of, can they just sideline into our business, side door in, and create a better product? I'm
going to caveat with, Derek wrote that story about the Porsche board and I didn't actually read. Is it a tow board or a paddle board?
It's a tow
board. That's the thing. I would say if you're paddling in, I would still go classic. But these tow boards are already so weird that I'm going to say Porsche, Mercedes have an edge on that, right? Where Peisel still has this heritage passed on to him from whoever. Who did he go shape for on the North Shore first? It was
who? Peisel?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
He went and Sam did something with, who's the dude out there who does? Bushman, exactly. I think he was with Bush. So, all of this knowledge and wherever Bushman got his knowledge before, back to the eons of the original Hawaiian Kings riding surfboards, right? Where for paddle, I'm still going paddle Peisel, but tow Porsche. Pull me in on a Porsche, paddle me in on a Peisel, pull me in on a Porsche.
Well, I like that you've committed to an answer so quickly. You are also a Porsche enthusiast anyways.
Yeah.
So you might not feel the same about the Tesla board that they were trying to sell a while back.
Screw Tesla, because Tesla has built a car, but I've seen Porsche build. Porsche, for example, is built the ballet school in Stuttgart, which is one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever seen in my life. So but
they didn't get into architecture. They hired an architectural team.
But they're not. So they're hiring somebody else to do this board too. Like it's Porsche designers plus I'm sure there is a
factory
surf something rather else on that team.
Or their designers sent the design and concepts to a local factory, surfboard factory, and the factory built the board.
Definitely. Like I don't think Porsche. But I trust Porsche on design. I trust Porsche mechanically. I trust Porsche, and same with Mercedes, right? Like I trust the Mercedes brand, and so I would trust them for a tow board. I would trust that would be better.
If Porsche then made available a pointy thruster for you to purchase, would you be inclined? Because as a Porsche enthusiast, would you be inclined to purchase?
No, that's right. That's where I stop because that's a different thing. I'm going to say then a tow board. That's where I draw the line at tow.
What I do like about these stories that come out periodically is Porsche and Mercedes aren't trying to get into the surfboard business. They're not even looking to sell a surfboard, but I'm impressed by Sebastian Steutner's management team and Garrett McNamara's management team to somehow
snag
partner,
these big dogs.
Snag the biggest dogs out there.
Yep.
I mean, it's incredible.
It's great. Yeah. Sebastian, I wonder if Sebastian, remember that moment that one spark when Christian Fletcher called Sebastian the guy who can't paddle or guy who can't surf, whatever.
This year's award goes to the guy who can't paddle into a wave.
Exactly.
Something like that.
We're watching, and love Christian Fletcher, but watching Christian Fletcher's arc from there versus watching Sebastian's arc. Sebastian is now signing deals with Porsche and is regularly in the news.
Yeah.
Christian Fletcher, you don't hear much from anymore.
Did he use the word Nazi in that?
Yeah, I think he said something. I think he did say Nazi.
He did use the word Nazi somehow.
I think he did.
He didn't call him a Nazi, and that's, I think, where he lost the room. You know what I mean? Like poor Sebastian Stutner, who's just like there to accept his award, gets associated with his country's bad past. Anyways, is there a car company that you would buy if they made a surfboard?
It's a great question.
Like if they made a pointy thruster, which car company do you like enough or trust enough to make something that you would be like, actually, I'm curious?
That is a great question. It might be Toyota, oddly enough. If Toyota got its Japanese like crew together and they came up with a Toyota board, I might go for it.
It would be economical.
Yeah.
It would be reliable. Go the distance.
Yep. Never need ding repair.
No.
Rarely.
Volkswagen would get into the mid-length game. Volvo would be soft top. High performance, soft top.
That's real funny.
Yeah, we could do a whole series of these.
We could.
Yeah, we'll do it next time.
Yeah.
All right, well, hey, great show. Nice to be in your backyard again.
Thank you so much for coming over.
Thanks for having me. Beachgrit.com, @surfjournalist, @surfsplendor, linkedin.com/surf, drinkag1.com/surf.
How did our new sign-off go last week? Did anybody comment?
Nobody commented. I forgot about it, but let's bring it back.
Great.
I think it's here to stay.
Let's somebody comment on this one.
Get people used
See how you feel.
Exactly. Start using it on your own sign-offs.
Yeah.
All right. Until next week.
Keep work.